Alright, welcome back everyone. Looks like we've got the wrong screen, so I better make sure my screen is properly sharing the right screen. We're going onto the BenQ. And that is all good. Alright, cool. Right, welcome back. So, just to give you all a bit of a recap, let's just go and have a look at what we were looking at before. And I think I've still got Supabase running. I'll just double have a look. So in the last stream, looks like we use Docker. So in the last stream, we did a couple of things. We were building out some services, and we're building a feedback flow. And the idea behind a feedback flow is we will create a feedback session, a little bit like a Stripe checkout session. And then after that, then what we will do is we will then make this service. We will then generate the items, save those to Supabase, and then throw someone into a checkout session. And this is all the stuff that we need to do, which is we need to generate these React forms dynamically based on the input schema that is going to be that feedback item. And then also the output schema is going to be what the form is then allowing each user to fill in per feedback item. And that could be like video, so we could like have audio, we could have input boxes, we could have like multiple choice sliders, and then we're then going to have to implement this in the client-side application, which will basically be where someone's fetching the code, we're rendering that code as a hydrated string on the client, and then we have this on submit, and we're going to either update some land graph state in the cloud, or we might even just update like custom state. So we're kind of like mostly the way there, but we were working on this form generator. I'm just going to run an update for cursor, and it looks like Docker wants me to log in as well. So just make sure I'm logged into Docker. And let's check, do we have some Docker? Right, cool. So our Docker containers are now up and running, which is good. And we're using the Supabase local stack. Basically what that means is we have a Supabase folder here, and we can run migrations locally, and also we have a config.toml which shows how the project is set up, and then we have a c.sql script which will basically allow us to add SQL in. And if you have a look at the existing migration, we've just got one migration here, and we've sort of talked about these are the different types of feedback items. One that I'm going to add, because we're primarily building this for an SEO agency to start with, is article. And we had to actually custom code that component and store that in the C data, because why not? Yeah. So we're going to primarily work on articles to start with, and then we'll go on from there. So that's currently what we're looking to do. Just get rid of this comma here. So anytime I'm changing migration files, we can run Supabase DB reset, and what that will do is it will basically drop all the rows in your database inside of Supabase in your local Docker Postgres container that will recreate the database, and it will run the migrations in a timestamp order. And then you can actually see all of these on localhost 54323. And you get a nice project editor, so you can see this is currently what we have. So we've got teams, profiles, we've got a couple of things like the feedback session. We also have the feedback responses, so what was the response data, and we have the feedback items. The one thing that I think I forgot to include, so we've got feedback content for review, feedback content to review, the input schema. I think we might want to rename these input schemas and output schemas at some point, because that will be more useful for the LLM to really understand what that thing is. So we might, for example, call that like feedback content to review input schema, and the output schema is like, maybe we should call that something like form data to collect output schema. So really naming these fields properly might give us a bit of a boost. I'm just having a look at all the fields now that we have. Okay, I think we're okay to go. So we've got a team, profiles have teams, and we've got these feedback bits here, which allows us to create this kind of feedback flow. Alright, sweet. So next thing we're going to fix is this form generator service, which is using LangChain. And we are generating a schema hash. We're then getting a cached template. When we get a cached template, what do we want to get? We're getting, so we want to change this. So rather than using the name, we actually now on the feedback UI templates have a schema hash. So there's a couple of things we want to change here. I want to use the schema hash column instead of using the name. Now also, if you notice here, the feedback items, it's just doing a model.dump. And what's dangerous about this is we haven't really said what the input and the output schema is inside of this prompt. So we really do need to tell it like what the input schema is and what the output schema is, so that we can, we can really determine what that should be. And we're also going to use a with structured output. So we can do the schema hash, and we can do that with cursor. And then I'm probably going to write the form by hand. Okay. Cool. All right. So let's do that. I want to use /read/store the schema hash column instead of the name. Make a UID name for now. We also want to change cache template to take in this. All the parameters. So let's use all the parameters. And then one thing I've really been pushing for everyone to do when you're using Cursor is always provide your database files or your SQL migration files. You'll find that this has a huge impact if you just pop in that. And then we can also pass in all the models that are in the entities folder, which is here, which actually come from the SQL database anyway, right? So what I found is giving all the migration files really does improve the context about what you're finding, in terms of the generations that you get out. So we've got the SQL files, we've got the entities, and we'll also put add doc strings to everything. Find context in folder. When we have code, what is code meant to be? Code is just text. Are we missing anything? Let's have a think about this. We need the code that's going to be generated for each individual item, but we don't want to necessarily use it to generate the iterator. So there could be multiple feedback items, and each item will be inside of a form. So one thing that I might want to do is just provide a generic CRUD UI in shad CDN to handle the iterable. So we could say something like this, like, I want you to generate a generic TypeScript interface for handling iterables of any data type. This is going to be used as a custom UI component. Then all of the feedback items will be inside of this. We should give this context to the prompt so that it can only generate single feedback item UI components that are unique in their input/output pairs of JSON schema, and we'll also throw in the SQL file. And the reason why I'm thinking we do this is then it won't generate like the going between or previous for a piece of feedback item. We can already make that ourselves and then just add that into the prompt. So let's also go and get this and throw this in. So because, you know, like if we're going to do lots of different feedback items, we probably want to have the same kind of UI for going back and forward on a feedback item. So we're thinking for something like this. And I want it to be a React UI component. I want this to be a React UI component. Let's make this super generic and also use shad CN, TypeScript, Zod, etc. Feedback item. We've got some validation. I don't think we need validation on the client side for inputs, as we already have validated the inputs going in, but we will need validation on the output schema. The UI needs to support going backwards, updating previous bits of feedback, going forwards to the next feedback. Make this UI amazingly dope. Say act as a senior React dev using Next.js app browser. Alright, let's see what we get. We've got motion, animate presence. Amazing feedback UI props, that's quite funny. Right, so we've got a current index, we've got the current feedback data, which can be a record of string any. We have current items. If it's the last item, we have a use form. Let's have a look here. Here's last item, submit, next. We've got different ones for case, radio, text area. Handle. What's the onSubmit? OnSubmit is a function which gets passed in. Okay, this looks pretty close to what we're looking for. The only thing is we've got this render feedback form, we've got text area radio, and I guess this is coming from the type. Maybe we should line up our types in here with, can you make these types aligned with we kind of want to figure this out for the user, and then that really takes away the work they have to do. Yes, it kind of feels to me like that's kind of going in the wrong direction if everyone has to say exactly what you want for those feedback items. So maybe we have another step that will actually look at the output schema and decide what types of endpoints to render based on those. So I think that's what we do is this is a label, min, max, step. This is rendering the controllers using React hook form. Yeah, that feels like what we need to do. We need to generate the relevant types and labels. We need to generate these things rather than this, and I want to keep this to more like I don't want to keep it to like file upload, multiple choice. Let's keep this to like this kind of thing: article, approval, custom. I think that's how we're going to do this for sure. So let's throw this in, but then say to the prompt that we're going to generate these things. Here is an example of the iterable parent component that will be used to render each item within the form. And we'll just give it the TSX so that it's aware. So I think we work on this bit. Right, now that we've got this prompt, for this prompt, we want to do the following things. We need to extract some structured data. We need to extract types, labels, the relevant types. We need to generate unique single React components that can be used for different input/output schema pairs. Each React component is then accessible and will be placed within the amazing feedback UI component. We only want to render unique child components, and then we should also give it the with structured output. Schema, a JSON schema. Model to use .with structured output, and then we'll also give it the docs for that. So again, we're really trying to give it as much context as possible whilst we're doing this prompt, because we only want to produce these single item components, and we've got this amazing feedback UI that's kind of going to be having these items on top. So let's just see, just regenerate this, I think. No, we should. No, we should tell it to include. We want to include this section. Unique child components for each input-output pair. That's what we want. We're dumping the models in. Return final code. We don't want to return the amazing feedback UI. I think we make another, maybe another model here. That's probably what we're going to do. So we'll call it form item. We want input code for rendering the form data. For rendering the content that someone will view. And then we want the output. We want the form code that a user will fill out, and we want, what else do we want here? Input code for rendering the content someone will view. Alright, that's better. Content render code, user form code, combined render. Then we want the form item. And we might need a bunch of these because we're going to have different form items are unique for each input/output JSON schema pair. This is what we're really trying to aim for, is these dynamic form items. Dynamic form item. Dynamic form items. Right. that might be everything. Has this got the system message in it? That's the system message, and we also have the human message, which is create a let's also ask ChatGPT to improve this. I think this is probably what we're looking for. Let's actually use the LangChain docs here. I want to, and this is a good example of using the documentation in Cursor. So I want to use system message, prompt template, and human message, prompt template, then pass some variables in instead. When we save the template, we're saving that to the form code, but at the moment the form code is not a Pydantic model. Can you update my service.py to handle for this? So this is the bit here where instead we do system message, and then we pass those into the chat prompt. And then we need to go now and change the, let's also add like a number of iterations. And then let's also change, we need to now change this code in the database, so rather than text it needs to be a structured JSON blob, because we're then going to go and save that, the form code, which is now no longer a string, that's a bunch of dynamic form actions are going to get saved here. And then now we've got a problem where the types are not correct, so we then need to update this type here. So if we look at the code, I think that's it. Form code. Alright, cool. So we're just recreating the database now because we've changed the code column into a JSON blob. And what's happening really here is we're using this like an iterations with a self-structured output, and we're getting back dynamic form items, and then that happens in the response, and then each dynamic form items is then going to be saved directly into the code, which is here. We might want to even rename this dynamic form items and rename this as well. And then let's also go and update this. So we'll say dynamic form items. And then you'll see we're getting a problem here with the types. Like it says it has an any type here, and that's because we're using a package called Superbase Pydantic. And so after I've done a restart of this Superbase local stack on the DB, we can actually run a quick shell script in here, which is just going to basically regenerate the Pydantic models as well. So someone kindly wrote a Pydantic model converter from the database directly, so you'll see now the dynamic forms items is going to be updated in a second. So you can see that dynamic form items is now actually a key. Dynamic form items. Team ID. Let's also add in a team ID here. Alright, sweet. Okay, cool. That's a first go at that. I think let's start, now that we've had a go at that, let's go back and dive into linear. Right, we've made a form generator service, and we have generated a form that has client-side validation. Let's add some SQL data for the seed data for the user and the team so that we can actually test this flow. Again, I'm just going to paste this in, and I'm going to also paste in all of the services here. So if we just do service.py, and then we can just actually, if maybe an easier way to do that is to just paste in the modules folder, and then we'll say I want to generate some profiles and seed data for Superbase. The reason why we want this is so that we can test our feedback flow from end to end. And we'll just test it as a one-off and see that we can get all the way down the pipeline. let's just test. I want the publics, the profiles, and then we want to do everything else by hand, I think. So we're going to go back into the Supabase folder, and we'll go into the seed. Yeah, how can we create users in Supabase or as part of the seed.sql? Or do we need to run another file for this? Might have to run another file for that, I think. Yeah, you'd have to create a seed auth. Let's have a look. Okay, cool. So I want to see if this works. So if I do Supabase db reset, we should now have 2 profiles in here. Alpha team, beta team, gamma team. Profiles ID, foreign constraint ID, insert or update on profiles private foreign key. Oh, it's because we need specific types of keys, right? Because the keys for this are UUID. We just need to convert these to UIDs. And the foreign keys in Teams, I think the other problem we have is so foreign key constraint, profiles ID key. Paste these back in. Oh, well done. ID references. Oh, it's because we don't have the auths table set up. That's interesting. I think for now, let's just change this to this. I'll put a note here to do add. Cool. So we've got some profiles, got some teams. Now we want to just test it in a request. Let's give it the folders of Supabase, SQL, we'll just give it SQL. And then we'll also give it all of our services, folders. I think I can even pull in some of the services here. form generator, URL generator, feedback session. API app launchers. Let's try maybe doing it inside of the Docker container. Or we could just do it as using requests. I think that works for now. That will create a feedback. Can you call localhost 80 or on 8080? Make an example of a Python request file, Jupyter notebook file that calls these. I'm just going to sit down for a minute because I've been stood up quite a while now. It's always good to have Cursor generating some code in the background. Let's give this a try. We also need a feedback flow. Do we have one of those? Schema name. Content and data, validate content. Right, so we need the feedback flow now. Maybe we need to say like feedback flow config. Pop this into cursor, let's go. Give it the services folder, modules, and we are also going to need to say something like change the feedback flow config to be a pydantic model. Also, I need to import the URL generator and the validator service. Nice. Lovely job. Feedback flow service can session service items config. List of item configs. validator session service. We need to pass in the session service into here. Let's fix these. And then we also need to fix, get rid of that, and then feedback session service. You are expecting that though. Ah. Nice. I think that's it. We also need to fix these types, which are strings. That's all fixed. Too many position arguments. Get a cache template. That should return this now. Cache template should be a dynamic form items. Let's fix all these errors. Cool. Dynamic form items. Yeah, that's what we want. Cache template is not that. Cache template is think that's fine for now. Pretty sure it's model. I think these errors are not actual real errors. Gonna come back to that. I think that it's not really as broken as it seems. So we have a URL generator service, we have a JSON schema validation service, a feedback session service, a feedback flow, which will take all of those different services. We'll then create a feedback flow with this items config and the session config. Right, I'm just going to restart my project and see if I've got rid of those errors. Yeah, I'm going to have to get a different lens for a thing. High lens pretty crap. I think that is it. This then creates a session. Let me just update this. Let me just make sure this is good. Pop in all those SQL database files inside of that, and then update my, we'll also just say update my Jupyter notebook file so that we can easily create a feedback. Give it a go. Let's create the session first. See if we can create a session. I guess it's all doing it in one flow, isn't it? Session config, pass all this in. Internal server, that's better. Settings.base URL. That is in the core. Attribute error base URL. I think I might just have to go and have a look and see whether we've produced this. So let me just go into the .env file. We do have it in there. Ah, we need to import the config. That's why. Nice. Fix that one. Now we're getting some serialization issues. when we're creating a session, okay, so this is happening here, look, in the feedback flow service. When we're doing this, we just need to convert this to a model dump. And then when we generate items, when we save the items, we need to also do a model dump. Oh yeah, so we'll just do it here. Yep. And let's also go check if there's anywhere else we need to go do that. You okay there? Right, I'm back at it. It looks like we're having a Costco for lunch, which is always lovely. Getting some block lists for these people doing cheap viewership. Alright, try that again. Aha! Further along. Dict item has no title. Feedback session, service. Config. Well, we're passing a title here. Feedback session service.py, which means we have a problem with the session config. Let's print out what the inside the session config is. Dict object has no attribute title. Oh, maybe it's we're actually, when we have this here, when we do a new session, this actually here, we need to make sure that whenever we call the create session, we actually don't have a dictionary, but we actually have the those bits of information. So let's just see where we're calling .create session. Oh, so a type UUID is not JSON serializable. This is happening when we're doing this. It's happening. So if I get rid of all this for now, does this is fine. I believe this bit's fine, I believe. We just go and get rid of this. Yeah, so that information's fine, and we do have the relevant pydantic models that are going out. So this is the, for example, this aside. So that is the session config. And this is the items config. So you can see we've got some items that we need to review. We have some input schemas and some output schemas. We have a session ID, which is currently set to none. So there's a bug that's happening in here with the create session. .execute. So it's happening in the .execute 955. So when we're doing a model dump, object of type UUID is not JSON serializable. I think this is a pydantic warning talking to us about the fact that we can't convert our UUIDs. I think this is a pydantic error, and here is our payloads. How can we serialize these UUIDs? Oh, the mode is on Python. So maybe if we change the mode of our model dump to JSON. Alright, cool. That's what we need to do. Now we've got a different error, which is the team IDs don't exist. So let's actually add the real team IDs that we set up earlier when we were doing our seed data. So that's exactly why we set the seed data up, right? So that we could just use these. So we use the alpha team ID, which is this one, and we use the user ID team, which is this one. And when I get that error from Postgres, where does that actually return? So I'm getting an error Postgres REST. So I'm going to want to handle these exceptions from Postgres REST. Let's add that as a thing to do, because that seems like a good idea. I think that'll be a fun thing to do. So we've added the SQL data. We're testing out this. We've also got some bug hunting, so we've got to handle for these types of errors. We also have to handle for pydantic validation errors anywhere inside the application. Let's try that again. And look, we've got a feedback flow. Sweet. Right. So if we go into here, we have our session. And we've got the ID, a survey to gather feedback on this is in a draft state. And then we've got the items. Now the items haven't been added, so let's go back in and start going through these step by step. So I'm going to delete this feedback session. And let's just add in all of this code and see what happens. It might break, but I'm hopeful. Okay, cool. Right, so we're failing in the validator, it looks like. So we make the session, which is good. Feedback items, object has no feedback content. Input. Oh, this could be because we need to regenerate our pi-identity models. So let's try doing that first. So just run that generate entities.sh. Now, I'm curious, if I try and run this again, input content for feedback, create feedback flow, generate items. Oh, so it's now not longer this, it's this one here. Feedback content to review. That's where our bug was. Cool, so we can generate these feedback sessions, which are going to be useful. And the next thing we need to do is test is, right, so we're getting here the feedback item service.py. Item service.py. We're getting an issue when we're saving the items. And that means at this point, the items that we have back, save item is model dumping these. Dot insert when we create the item, let's give this one to Cursor. I think Cursor can probably figure this out. I do love a bit of AI coding, the joys of AI coding. Save items. Okay, so we're just converting them back into dicks. Save item. Validation error, filter missing. What are we missing? Save items, should be a list of dicks. Save item. Dick type here. Boom, 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 boom. We can try that. I don't think it's going to fix it though. We're so close. Delete these. Okay, so I think there's an ID error that's happening. So the ID error I think that we've got is when we have a feedback session, in the feedback item section, oh, I also need to update this validation error. It's a identical thing. Expected type, sync point. Yeah, we've already updated that, so no need to worry about that. Schema, we've also updated that to be a dick penny, so that we can ignore that. Okay, what's next? Right, so there's a problem here where we can create a feedback session which will have a URL of, we're going to make it just basically like a feedback and then whatever the session ID is, which will throw someone into a Stripe checkout session, essentially like a feedback session like this. And each session ID will then have its various state, like an active, a pause, completed, archived, cancelled, or failed. And then each one also has a user ID. Now, the bit that I'm struggling to get working at the moment is getting the feedback items in, and I think the error is to do with, if we just create one of these, you can see, could not find the feedback sessions column of feedback items. So we're able to, could not find the feedback session. I think maybe it's because we're passing in these feedback items, which, so the items config, you can see here, it doesn't have a session ID. I think that's where we're running into an issue, is if we were to look at the feedback sessions, the feedback items, if we just print out what these items are before we save these to the database, let's have a look. So print items to save, and then I'll also just make sure there isn't anything in the API as well. So we'll just get that all cleaned up. There's nothing in the feedback flow service. I don't think there's any print statements here. Yeah, get rid of these. So I think the error is to do with the fact that we are passing in these things that don't have session IDs. And we can find that by just doing this. And if we have a look at the items that we're trying to save, this is an example of an item, right? This does have a session ID. Does that session ID match this one? It does, which is good news. Okay, so the session ID does match in the feedback items, which is this one here. So let's have a look at the error. Could not find the feedback sessions column. Oh, I know what the problem is. We need to, so for the feedback item, when we save an item, oh, the error we're getting is this one here. Create feedback flow, which happens, let me just go here. Yeah, it's this feedback item service dot execute on line 81. So it's this line of code that's causing us the problem. So we're saying could not find the feedback sessions column. Oh, that's the problem. We need to change this to be session ID. That has it. Could not find the feedback session column of feedback items. What is the type of data that we're sending? It's happening when we're running this bit here and we're saving it. We're saving it to the feedback items. We're inserting. Can you insert many? Just out of curiosity, no. Can you insert a list? We should just insert a list rather than doing them separately. So first things first, let's change this code. So we'll say number one, change this so that when we do an insert, do a list instead of having a separate helper function. And then the second thing is we also need to fix this problem where we've got this feedback sessions. Oh, could it be aliasing it? That might be happening in our entities. Feedback sessions. Ah, look, this is the problem there. So rather than that, let's create these base schemas. That's the problem we've got. We'll say, for this error, I recommend we use the base pydantic model. This will avoid having additional foreign keys as extra keys. Nice, we found it, guys. So first we need to import that base schema, we've already got that. Save items is now changed. Remove the same item one. Get rid of that. Let's have a save items. Oh, now we need to update these. Update other methods to use feedback items base schema. Feedback items base schema, feedback, let's just do everything as the base schema now. Looks good to me. Field type, again, this is also a problem because if you look in the base model, because we're using an enum type, this package is renaming this thing to have an alias of type. So when we need to save these, we need to update these to have the field type, because it's aliasing it to type instead of field type, which is what we don't want. So for now, I'm just going to do that when we do the model.dumps. We just need to by alias is equal to false. And I also wonder if I can do that when I create them. Can I remove aliasing when I create my pydantic models as well? Type should be field type. I can do it when I serialize, saving like this. So it's a classic problem of someone's written a dev tool but they haven't finished this bit. You can remove aliases when you create a model. You can directly use the field names you want. Oh, okay, cool. So you can just change it from type to field type. Field type is missing. So it's this bit here. I guess I do need to have this. Type field required. You've lied to me. Lord, you've lied. Do you need this? But I think the aliasing is also good. Could not find field type column in the schema. Oh yeah, we also want to get rid of, let's go back in here. Model to Jode. Pydantic errors are fun. Let's say I can't change it. Let's say I don't want to change it. How can we do this? And we'll also give it a SQL file as per usual, because everyone loves getting debugged with a great SQL file. I find that has such a great impact, is if you basically just, yeah, let's say, this is also bad, hold on. Let's say, but I want to keep it like this. Must keep it like this. Because it is automatically generated. So we're doing a type of copy, we're popping out the field type. Convert Pydantic model ensuring type is used for database. But we don't want to use type. Oh, we do want to use type. Okay. Well, there you go then. Failed to pass columns. Let me just get this and say items to save. Missing ID. Validation for error. Only set fields are included. That's right. Feels like my life now. Literally just taking code from ChatGPT, pasting it in, popping in the error, and then moving forward on my life. Self is not defined. It means we need to tab this in. Oh, now we're getting this error, which is that these are not serializable. Oh yeah, we need the mode of JSON. Yes! I cannot believe I've said that, but we have literally... Alright, now I think we could even get rid of order index, because depending upon when they're inserted. But for now, I guess we can keep it, it's fine. We need to generate these created ats and updated ats if they're not. So let's go and fix that. Okay, cool. Right, so what did we learn here? We can now do, with a post request, a feedback flow, right? So what does this feedback flow consist of? Well, you need a team, a user, a status to create the session. Title, description, team, user ID, status, and feedback. Then for the items config, you have a ID, you have a feedback. So this is the content that you want to review, and that's going to generate like the review widget. And then we have the type of feedback, and this is the input schema. So you can see this is what is basically this thing. And then the output schema is what you want from the user in the form of a form. So these two are the things that are then going to generate a React code, which will run. We then create a feedback flow, and that then generates a session, and it also generates the relevant items for that session ID. So the one thing that we just need to do is change it so the created at and updated at get automatically populated. We've tested this. We've said, so now we'll say for the session as well, let's also change that. For the session, feedback sessions and the feedback items, if there is no created at or updated at, use the current timestamp as a default. Let's make a new migration for this. Superbase migration new, adding on timestamps. I need to do, and then we literally just take whatever our prompt is, pass that in, and then we're going to get some alter table SQL commands. Alter table creates that, set the default to the current timestamp, feedback sessions, where updated that is null. And then do superbase db reset. When we're doing that superbase db reset, then we're restarting. And remember, we've added some seed data in now, so we've got a team and a profile we can actually test against. We've got teams and profiles, and then we're going to just test this flow once more. And we've got an error. So what error did we get? Foreign key constraint team ID. Team ID. Let me just see. Oh, it's probably because the IDs are generated dynamically for the team. I think the user ID, we encode them, but we don't for this one. But I do need to expose these. So, okay, cool. Anyway, so now we've got a session, and ooh, interesting that the created at and the updated at still have not been produced as timestamps. Let's update the, let me see, so feedback item. We could say actually like some to exclude. That might be one way to get around it. I guess the problem is, are we passing that in here? No. let's have a look in the base entities. Kind of want a default factory here, but I don't want to make it, because if I do, then what's going to happen is you can see they've always just set the defaults to none if it doesn't exist. And so the problem is when my Supabase is saving it, it's looking at those and going, oh well, they are none, so it makes a null type. But we don't want that, so I'm wondering what the best way to handle that is. So let's pass in the modules, and we'll pass in the entities folder and the SQL. We'll pass in the Supabase, because we're starting to get multiple migrations, we'll just pass in the Supabase folder. So I am currently able to save a feedback session and feedback items. The problem I am experiencing is that my pedantic models that are automatically generated don't have a default factory for the date time. That's the problem we've got. How would you approach this? We currently have defaults set in SQL for the for if it is missing. Perhaps we can exclude it. I think that might be the simplest way. From attributes to modify this to exclude, created out and updated. I think that makes the most sense. Because otherwise we've got to go and change our we probably only want to do that when we're items to save. Create items, say items to save. I think that's probably it. And we also need to do the same in the feedback session when we create those items. And let's also do the same in here when we generate a form. JSON schemas, dynamic form items. I think that's probably it. Let's give that a whirl. Nice. So now we're getting the created at and the updated at, and we're also getting the same on the feedback sessions. So we just had to exclude those, and then the SQL migration, which is here, is just going to add on default timestamps, which is good. So now we can just go get rid of these. So if I run a feedback session, we get our feedback session, we get the items that get created in there, got the input schema, the output schema, and all of that is validated as JSON schema as well. And we've got the content, feedback content to review, and then it's a custom type, and this is the order of that feedback. So where does that leave us? Yeah, that's this one. I think one thing that I want to do is I'm gonna go take a break. I'm gonna take a break because I've been coding for like an hour and a bit. But what have we managed to do? Well, we've got this really nice API route called a feedback flow, And that feedback flow actually wraps up a feedback session and all the feedback items into a simple thing. So now we don't have to like create a session manually and add those items to it. We can literally have something like this where you're going to create that Stripe checkout session essentially, pop in the items, and then just run it, and then it will generate the content. One thing I want to talk about is maybe some of the bugs that exist in the application at the moment. So we're not handling for these post-exception errors, and we're not handling for these pydantic validation errors in a nice way. And so that's one thing that I want to have a look at when we get back. And then once we've done that, I also then want to I want to start setting up a front end for this. And we'll probably use the ship fast boilerplate for that. The other thing that I think we should move along upwards is, rather than write the API code ourselves, I really want to give this this item a try, which is the stainless API. And basically what this person has produced is it will generate the SDKs for you. So I'm hoping that the Fast API backend will have enough where I can basically put in my OpenAI spec from Fast API and then put in the stainless config and get these SDKs that are produced and just consume my own SDK. So, you know, basically that's what I'm thinking. And then once I have that, I think they also offer a free tier. So for the pricing, I can have one live SDK in any language. So I'll just choose TypeScript, right? And that will be basically like what I'll do. So that is the plan, is set that up and then really refine these OpenAI spec with what we have here, so that we can basically just use that as our OpenAI spec. And we've already got the pydantic models, which are really quite nice. So hopefully that should be pretty quick. And we've got this OpenAI spec here. I think we might need to improve this and improve the OpenAI specification, so we can dive into that whilst we're setting up Stainless. And then we can consume our own API on the front end using this TypeScript, the Stainless API, which will basically, and this is how OpenAI produces all of its packages, and Anthropic produce their packages. So a lot of them are using this package, which I find really interesting. So let's try that and then see how it goes. And then what we can do is we can try then setting up the TypeScript side to then generating that content. And I'm also, for everyone else's sake, I'm going to do article as the first kind of like thing that we work on for feedback, because I have a couple of use cases where someone needs to actually use that potentially. So I'm going to be focusing solely on article feedback. And we'll build a custom UI for this that will sit in the feedback UI templates. We'll just upload it once we're happy with it, and go from there. All right, cool guys. I'm gonna go take a break so be back in 5-10 minutes. Need a better image really, don't I? Time for a break. Maybe something like this. you go on my stream for lunch? Do you want to message me when lunch is available? Cool. Alright. It is time to get back to the grind. Let's have a look. Let's get the tunes flowing. There's one thing I want to just quickly change, which is whenever we're excluding certain types of columns, we need to be really careful about doing that, because if someone sends these from the API and they actually are proper, then we should not exclude them. So that's what we should do, is we should check if either created at or update is set, and if not, add to exclude columns. And then we could do something like this. And then we'll do the same in the feedback items. That just means that when someone creates either of these, we don't have to worry with the fact that they might have done that at the API layer. Yeah. Nice. Okay, that's a nice easy way of handling that, because we don't also want to stop that, and we also want the same logic here. Got a nice cup of tea. Let's just see wherever we use the dot exclude, wherever we use the exclude. Cool. All right. Nice. Right, let's give that a test run and just make sure we didn't break anything by doing that, because that would be bad. So let's have a look. Nice. We've got these things that we can then give feedback on with a callback, and we have a description of that thing. Now, there's a couple of different things that I want to figure out here, which is like, what happens if we get an actual error? What do we show to the user? want to move this thing up, the stainless API. What scalar was this thing? Can't remember what this is. Ooh, nice. Let's try it. See what happens when I download this file. What's the price for this? Generating your API guide. Is it free? Can't beat free, guys. Nice, look at this. Interesting. Cool. So we definitely want to set that up as well for the API docs, but I think it's not as important as moving this stainless thing out. We need to set this up sooner, in my opinion. Let's do some bug hunting first though. Let's see what kind of errors we get. And I want to handle these as best I can for now. So let's have a look. So for example, if I do something like this where I create a team, let's give this to Claude and say, I have created a feedback flow service. Currently, I need my application to handle these globally. We need to handle pedantic validation errors. We need to handle Postgres REST exception errors from Supabase. Any other types of errors. How best to handle these errors and what you would recommend implementing, and then let's also give access to logging and also the routes. We're adding this. we've got 3 types of exception handlers, and then in our routes folder, we need to, so we have the logger, get logger. This is going to happen in main.py though. This uses the logger to set the logging config. Use lazy logging formatting. This is added. I think we'll disable this, logging f-string interpolation. I quite like that. Come on, Claude. Wakey, wakey. Yeah, I don't think we need that. Don't need that middleware for logging. Yeah, you can see we've already got this. But, interestingly, we still want the cause middleware and we also still want the exception handling. So if I try and do something like this, that's looking amazing, look at that. 422 gives me unprocessable identities. So we already get that on our endpoints from Pydantic. We do need to test internal models as well. So let's just make a route to test that, right? Like that's probably going to be the easiest way of doing this. If I just do like a router.post test, and then in here we have a Pydantic model. And we just try and like load, and we don't do anything. Now if I just make a post request, watch what happens there. Unprocessable entity. Message required. Now is that happening from our exception handler or not? If I do this now, and I get rid of that exception handler, which is here. Yeah, look at that. Way better. So now we actually get Pydantic validation happening inside of the endpoints, which is much nicer. So now we can have an exception handler, and that exception handler is solely responsible for when we run into a Pydantic validation error. We get that and we put the errors inside of there, and then now once you execute this, you actually get the original kind of errors that you get in Fast API, but we get that from any one time when we have an exception that is inside of a request route, which is really nice. So that kind of confirms that, but it's worth testing that out. It's quite nice. All right. So we've handled for those, and we've also got the Postgres REST errors. That is not a bug. Cool. Let's try running the rest of the feedback flow now. So this is generating the items. We've got the rest of it now where we have a Creating feedback flow, we've made the flow created, URL created. And then the next bit that we need to do is we need to create the React code and save that. So we're going to need to change this slightly where we want to pass in a code generator service. But this is actually called a in here, this takes a validator Supabase it has a model, and we have we need the .generate form. I've got the .generate form items, I think, because that's actually what it is. Generate form items. Looks good to me. So this comes from let's put these in order. So we create a form session, then feedback, then the URL, and then the form generator service. Then we also have the dynamic form items. Okay. Let's try it. Give it a go. Great. Unexpected error. Oh yeah. I think we should always standardize by having this structure. Data, message. What do we do on the quad routes? Change these to always return a data key and a message key. How does it work at the moment? Oh, we have a response model. I quite like keeping the response model, to be honest. Otherwise we lose the types on that. No, I think let's not go with that. Maybe we should actually change it so that the response model is something that we have for everything. OpenAI model name. Yeah, I like this. This is nice. API response paginated. API response. Let's say custom models. Can you rewrite my CRUD router to work with pagination and have an input and output model? You can make another one for querying Supabase if it helps. think we also need to test these CRUD routes. It's not immediately like needed to be done, but we should really test them. So thoroughly test the API CRUD routes that are automatically generated within automated CRUD. Gonna have to do that sooner rather than later, I think. Alright, we're getting an error which is this one here, which is in the form generator module. And the reason why we're getting that is because we want to import the config instead of the settings. We're going to try that again. Right, so we're missing these two arguments from the form generator service. You'll see when we make this feedback flow from the session config. If we pass in the session, create feedback flow, we generate a session here. There is a dependency between the session that we have here, so we should probably, in my opinion, not pass this, the feedback flow service. We shouldn't couple these together because otherwise then the code gets quite coupled. So I think if we do it this way round, so if we have the form generator service here, and then we remove it from we return the URL. Let's just return the URL for that session, which is the feedback flow. Hey Momo, yeah, I've switched. I'm not doing Team 2BC Arena anymore. I'm doing coding. It's been a while, yeah. I used to do a lot of gaming, so I'm really interested to see that you've stumbled upon that. Superbase validator. We don't have a item service anymore. This will return a URL. Then create a feedback flow. Let's also return the session ID. Then we can pass this in. Generate form items. Form session service. It's not a tuple. Get it out of your head that it's a tuple. It's definitely not a tuple. It's not what we want. Right. Feedback items base schema. That's it. Right, so we're generating the forms and the items is equal to the items config. The session ID we need to pass in a session. So the generate form one here. Team ID. That should get us generate forms. Let's actually pop what this should give us on. The generate form items should give us the dynamic form items. It's either giving us back a dictionary, so we want to, and that's what we want. Cool. Dynamic form items. Input variables. Yes. Now the problem we're running into is all of our JSON schemas. Let's just see what the problem is in here. Incompatible return type. Oh, it expects a set. For these excludes. List of strings expected set. Right, so the problem is happening here. This is why we're getting this error, because you can see here an unexpected error. This is because you can see this on here. Look, there's these value unknown. So basically, what's happening is when LangChain is trying to get this stuff sorted, the problem it's running into is these model.dumps, the JSON schemas, when they hit the prompt template in here, we need to actually escape the brackets. So we need to do this. Alright, Docker's going in a loop. Wow, look at this Docker. This is the most loopy thing I've ever seen. So we need to basically stop it. So we need to say, when you generate the model.dump, you need to escape each pair of brackets like this. And that's the problem we're running into. So just by changing that, what we're doing is we're adding some escaping here. Need to fix this indentation error though. Fix these two errors. I'm just going to throw in the whole file and ask it to fix these. You just right click, copy, pop that into cursor, and then just give it the code. This seems to work really, really well. let's do this here. Runnable can be up here. We'll say clean the schemas so that they are stringified. And we also don't need this created at and updated at. And the brackets are escaped. Alright, that looks a lot better already. So while the number of iterations, put this code here where it belongs. We also have something if it doesn't find something. Cool, that should fix it. So basically the problem is when you put in model.dumps into your LangChain invokes, the problem you'll run into is you need to escape JSON keys. So because we're doing we're getting all the schemas, and remember these schemas are for the feedback items, we want to exclude these. The other thing that we want to we also want to give it some information about what an input schema is, what an output schema is, and the feedback content to review as well. So we want feedback. I think this might be contained in this. Let me just have a look. We need to go to the form generator flow. No. Where do we need to go for this? That is the find section. Try and return, and if we hit an exception, we continue. And at which point, after the while loop, we then basically That looks fine. So the JSON schemas that we pass in here are dynamic form items. Well, that's what we're creating. But what are the inputs that we give it? That happens in the feedback flow. Well, it doesn't happen in the feedback flow. It currently happens in here. Okay, so it's the feedback items. So we're doing that across the entire items. I think that's about what we need to do. Value expected is field name. So we've got these feedback items. We're failing to, I think we're creating feedback items and we're creating the feedback session, but the bit that we're struggling with at the moment is we're struggling to run this custom chain that we've just made, which is going to allow us to generate the form items in the feedback flow. And if we go into the form service, we're currently failing on the bit in generate form items, which is telling me that in this bit here, it's failing in the system prompt, and it's failing because there's not this thing, which means in the system prompt message, so the reason why is because all of these are acting as placeholders. So we also need to escape the React code that we pass in. So I'm going to go take a break because escaping all this React code is going to be quite messy. So what I'm probably going to do is do it with an extra message, like this is the current React code. So I'm going to go change this. That's like one thing that we need to just work on, which is that. So let me just put a note on. We need to escape the React code, probably as a separate message without a prompt template. And that's the form generator service. And then once that's done, then we have something where we can generate a feedback session. We can have multiple items in that feedback session, and each of those are validated by a JSON schema and an output schema, and then we know the order of those, and we'll just set those for now to be articles. So if I go up here, I can set this thing to be a type of article, for example. And interestingly, if I just say test, what actually happens? We get an unexpected error, API error. Oh, that's an interesting one. So let's say we've got to fix the API response, the feedback flow, and maybe other routes. And then after that, then we've got a scenario where what we can do is then we'll get the React code that will drop in, which will then drop in here. The other thing that I'm thinking of is this template. It needs to be linked to the feedback session. At the moment, it's only linked to this. And the feedback session also has the team UUID. So let's remove the team UUID from here. And let's add in the feedback session UUID instead. that makes a lot more sense. So we'll say remove the team ID from feedback UI templates and store the template for a feedback session. Because then, if we ever need to get the team for a feedback UI template, we can just traverse back into the feedback sessions, get the team ID from there, and then query it back. And that means we're not duplicating the IDs as much as possible. Cool. So I'm going to leave it there for now. But yeah, hopefully you all enjoyed the live stream. I'll be streaming after lunch. We'll crack these bugs, and then after that, we'll start setting up Stainless. And then after we set up Stainless, then I think tomorrow onwards, I'm going to start doing the like the custom work for an article and the feedback that goes alongside an article, and getting that process really smooth in terms of creating these sessions, and then having these articles or these pieces of content that someone can provide feedback on. We'll have to add things like commenting and the ability to end a feedback session or change the status of a feedback session, as well as also tables. So that is currently what we're going to do. Anyway, cool. Yeah, it was a nice stream. I'll see you all in a bit.